Now, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but we all sometimes find ourselves in this situation. For example, especially in the mornings, we look in the mirror to see our faces. However, we don't just see our faces. We unfortunately see all the fatigue that the years have brought upon us, even the tension and negative traces that our neglected moments have silently left on our faces. And the most painful part of this situation is, of course, that these marks on our faces are not a gift from the years. They are the result of constantly putting ourselves second, making sacrifices in the hustle and bustle of life, always putting others first, and neglecting those simple but effective daily practices. In fact, what we call youth is not so much a challenge against time as it is a failure to show the courage to truly take care of ourselves. When we manage to do this, we will easily see that our skin recovers very quickly, our eyes open up, and our face takes on a brighter, more radiant appearance. But let me tell you this. For a person to truly begin this journey, they must first take decisive steps by telling themselves, "I am absolutely worth this." Everything I will try to convey to you in this video is actually about the transformative journey of very small but equally effective practices based on this very realization. Before moving on to the first point, I ask a very small favor of you. Write "I am returning to myself" in the comments. Because when you write this, our goal is not just to leave a normal comment, it is to clearly express the promise we make to ourselves and at the same time to open the door to change in our minds by writing it down. This way, our bodies embrace these practices much more quickly, and the effect of each method I'll describe shortly increases by at least twofold. Because let's not forget that transformation begins with awareness. 1. The big transformation created by a small touch in your morning routine. In fact, there is a very small but equally effective touch in the morning routine that many people overlook without realizing it. Of course, the effect that this touch has, both biologically and psychologically, is quite significant. And of course, we can think of this effect as a building block that shapes and enlivens us during the time we experience in the day. First, let me tell you this. Your skin is particularly vulnerable to the outside world in the early hours of the day, and it is also highly receptive. Naturally, the right and conscious practices we adopt during this sensitive time frame increase the rate at which our cells regenerate, thereby significantly slowing down the effects of aging. And thus, psychologically, we prepare ourselves for the feeling of, "I am very different today. I am much more radiant today." Actually, if I may make a comparison, in those early hours of the morning, our skin gives us a fresh start, like a brand new, clean slate. However, the critical point here is that how we fill this page depends entirely on the first application we make within that time frame. Of course, there is that little touch that comes into play here. That is what essentially activates our first barrier and, consequently, significantly speeds up the microcirculation on our face. It is also a very valuable practice that provides our cells with the critical moisture and energy balance they need. To give an example, a light cold application or a small, well-known moisture boost that does not strain our skin causes both our facial muscles and the lower layers of our skin to activate. This ensures that we have a much younger, livelier, and brighter appearance throughout the day. Of course, as many of us would think, the effect of this small touch on us is not only physiological, that is, we should not ignore psychology in response to this. Because, let me put it this way, the person who takes care of themselves in the early hours of the morning is actually sending a very important message to their subconscious. That message is, "I am not surrendering to aging, I value myself." Of course, this message instantly affects the person's posture, facial expressions, even their energy and relationships with those around them in a very positive way. When you think about it, there is an expression of confidence on the face of a person who takes care of themselves. This is actually one of the most fundamental factors of youth. And really, with just a few minutes of morning practice, this confidence can be easily rebuilt. By the way, unfortunately, only 1 in 5 people who watch my videos subscribe, and of course, this naturally upsets me. To change this situation, if you click on the bottom right corner of the screen, you will not only do me a huge favor, but we will also never lose touch with each other. 2. A single daily habit that renews the skin barrier. When most of us hear the term skin barrier renewal, we may think it requires serums or a time-consuming ritual involving multiple steps. However, even a single daily habit can significantly accelerate the normal renewal of our cells, because I can comfortably tell you that our skin barrier essentially acts like armor, protecting us from all external threats. And of course, strengthening this armor doesn't require huge steps. It's shaped by correct, minimal, and regular repetition. For this reason, a small daily skincare routine acts as a fundamental lever that over time restores both the elasticity and radiance of our skin. In fact, the reason many women appear to have suddenly become younger is due to this microscopic yet continuous renewal triggered by such habits. To give an example, over time, our skin barrier unfortunately forms fine lines, like a wall that is about to crack, and becomes unable to retain its moisture. Naturally, it then succumbs easily to external factors. However, a small change we make, such as properly applying a barrier-friendly moisturizer, will significantly accelerate this wall's normal repair process. And as you know, water acts as a mortar between cells, making it much easier for our tissues to tighten and for the oil layer to lock in this mortar and protect it from external factors. As a result, our skin begins to look firmer, stronger, and even much younger. Let's not forget that although this effect may appear to be a sudden improvement in the skin when viewed from the outside, this transformation is actually the result of a gentle but continuous internal restructuring. The key point that distinguishes this habit from many other skincare methods is its sustainability. People typically abandon complex routines over time, but they have the ability to maintain a simple and effective practice for much longer. Repeating a single step every day truly reshapes the texture of our skin over time. The stabilization of moisture balance, which plays a critical role here, softens fine lines and, in a sense, dissolves that tired look on our faces. Ultimately, a single daily habit that renews cells works like a mechanism that quietly reverses the traces left by time. 3. The change that turns nighttime sleep into a vehicle for youth. Before starting this very important topic, let me first point out that the effect of nighttime sleep on rejuvenation is often underestimated. Yet even a single small change can transform sleep into a biological repair laboratory. This is because the human body enters a biological phase during deep sleep when cell renewal works at its fastest. During this time, the skin restores its oxygen, collagen, and water balance to repair all the stress it has been exposed to throughout the day. A single correct intervention makes this nightly repair cycle more efficient, stronger, and more effective. Thus, when the person looks in the mirror in the morning, they will have a subtle yet very clear sign of youthfulness. Essentially, to understand the power of this change, we need to take a closer look at the sleep mechanism, because at night, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, cells calm down, blood circulation increases, and the skin begins to reshape itself. Of course, if a person adds a nighttime habit that complements this cycle, such as a sleeping position that prevents pressure on the face, the right temperature setting, or a simple application that prevents the skin from losing moisture throughout the night, this biological process is amplified exponentially. So remember, what you do may seem small, but its effect creates a ripple effect throughout the night. Now, here's the thing. This repair that takes place in the silence of the night actually carries the burden of the entire day. This is because the stress, intense facial expressions, UV rays, and air pollution we are exposed to during the day cause micro-damage to our cells. Repairing this damage is almost entirely left to the night. Therefore, a small change in your nighttime routine is like an eraser that wipes away all the wear and tear of the day. For example, even the height of the pillow used for proper sleep can preserve facial contours, reduce puffiness in the skin, and make the eye area look more vibrant. This seemingly ordinary detail is actually the architect of waking up with a younger-looking face in the morning. As most of us would guess, the real value of this change comes from its sustainability. Because everyone already has a nighttime routine, all that needs to be done is to add a single behavior that optimizes it. As this behavior is repeated, the skin recovers better night after night, appearing brighter and more rested in the morning. Over time, this small step softens fine lines, makes the facial contours more defined, and makes the skin more elastic. Of course, someone looking from the outside wouldn't understand why, because what makes the difference isn't an expensive product, but a simple change added to the night. 4. A daily mini-exercise routine to strengthen facial muscles. We have come to one of the most important and valuable points. Strengthening facial muscles is one of the deepest mechanisms for rejuvenating the skin, yet it is often overlooked by many women. This is because the face, just like other muscle groups in the body, loses its tone over time, becomes slack, and becomes more susceptible to gravity. Of course, at this very point, a mini exercise that takes less than a minute each day creates a leverage effect that fundamentally changes the appearance of the face. This small movement strengthens the facial muscles, tightening the underlying structure of the skin. Thus, the person not only looks younger, but also transforms the expression on their face into a more dynamic and vibrant form. Of course, there is also this. The real power of this mini exercise comes from creating a natural face-lifting effect. Because strengthening the muscles means tightening the underlying structure that supports the skin. Just as strengthening the columns of a building makes the entire structure look more solid, gaining resistance in the facial muscles also makes the skin look firmer, higher, and smoother. Even a light resistance movement targeting the cheek line, jawline, and mouth area can create noticeable improvement within a few weeks. You'll also appreciate that the most impressive aspect of this transformation is how natural it looks from the outside, because the person is investing in their own muscle structure, achieving a biological lift rather than an artificial result. I would also like to mention that to understand the biological effect of this exercise more clearly, one must consider the microcirculation of the face. Activating the muscles increases blood flow in the area, allowing more oxygen and nutrients to be transported to the cells. This is the real source of the phenomenon known as the skin glowing from within. In other words, the healthy glow a person sees when they look in the mirror is actually the result of accelerated circulation due to muscle activity. The dull and tired appearance of the face gradually disappears, replaced by a more vibrant, energetic, and luminous expression. Ultimately, daily mini exercises that strengthen the facial muscles are a silent weapon that most people overlook in their quest for youth, but which delivers one of the most effective results. It may not be possible to completely stop the effects of time, but these small exercises seriously reduce the speed at which gravity affects the face. Remember, this daily micro-movement imparts resilience to the skin, strength to the expression, and a unique freshness to the individual. 5. Having a moisture balance that instantly makes the skin look more vibrant. Now, friends, what I want to say here is this. The fastest way to make skin look vibrant is through that little moisture balance that most people underestimate. Because when the skin loses its moisture balance, it takes on a dull, tired and lifeless appearance. But when it receives the right amount and intensity of moisture, it instantly comes alive, reflects light better, and brings out a youthful glow in a matter of seconds. Therefore, moisture balance is one of the fastest levers of beauty. It can make a difference with just one touch, because when the water retention capacity of cells increases, the skin plumps up from within, becoming fuller, smoother, and brighter. Essentially, there is a biological truth behind the effectiveness of moisture balance. When the skin fills the intercellular matrix with water, it distributes light more evenly. This is almost the same as the effect photographers call soft glow. In other words, the human face appears softer, more luminous, and smoother. Fine lines lose their shadows, and harshness softens. Therefore, moisture acts like a natural filter with a stronger aesthetic effect than makeup. This is precisely why many women instantly look younger right after applying moisturizer. When the skin is hydrated, it becomes unified and produces a radiance that conceals imperfections. Looking at it from another angle, getting the right level of moisture doesn't mean using too much product. On the contrary, it's about being able to read the skin's needs on any given day. Because sometimes a light gel is needed, sometimes a medium thickness cream, and sometimes a light touch of oil to lock in moisture. The relationship between skin and moisture is similar to how soil absorbs water. Some days it is absorbed quickly, some days it remains on the surface. When a person begins to understand their skin's rhythm, moisture balance becomes a personal strategy. When this strategy is set correctly, the skin instantly revitalizes and maintains that vitality throughout the day. Additionally, another aspect of this moisture balance that alters appearance is its effect on microcirculation. Skin in contact with moisture balances its temperature. The capillaries on the surface work more efficiently, and the skin's color reaches a healthier tone. Therefore, the skin is not only moisturized, redness is also reduced, dullness disappears, and a more balanced color consistency emerges. In short, moisture is not just water. It is a source of vitality that even restores the emotional energy of the face. The tired expression is resolved, the eye area appears brighter, and the person begins to carry a more awake and fresher aura. 6. Make dietary adjustments that accelerate cell renewal. I want to start with a harsh truth. Dietary adjustments that accelerate cell renewal are a much smaller intervention than most people think, but their effect is much greater, because the body repairs itself not with creams applied externally, but with the building blocks it receives internally. Skin cells divide, die, and regenerate millions of times every day. The quality of this cycle depends on what a person eats and what they choose not to eat. This is why a single dietary adjustment, perhaps reducing excess sugar, increasing antioxidant density, or ensuring adequate intake of a mineral that regulates water retention, creates a kind of acceleration in cellular mechanisms. The complexion appears brighter, the skin recovers more quickly, and the person immediately notices that something has changed when they look in the mirror. I would like to emphasize that to understand the logic behind this change, one must consider how cells function, because when a cell receives the right fuel, it increases its metabolic rate, but when it receives the wrong fuel, it slows down or malfunctions. In other words, the quality of the skin is actually dependent on the inner workings of an invisible kitchen. To give an example, antioxidants protect cells from oxidative stress. Amino acids that support collagen production keep the skin tighter. Omega fatty acids give the cell membrane an elastic structure. When this structure is strengthened, the skin not only looks younger, but also becomes more resilient, plumper, and more balanced. The most remarkable aspect is that it has the ability to show its effects very quickly. This is because nutrients transported through the bloodstream reach the skin within minutes. The skin then uses these nutrients to increase its moisture, repair micro-damage, and make its texture smoother. At this point, most women are surprised to see their skin suddenly look brighter and more alive, yet this is one of the simplest principles of biology. Cells that are given the right fuel work more effectively. Cells that work effectively delay the signs of aging. Of course, maintaining this small change in habit is the foundation for long-term transformation. As the skin is nourished better every day, cell renewal accelerates. Accelerated renewal produces a younger appearance in a shorter time. At a certain point, the person begins to look healthier, more vibrant, and brighter even without makeup. This is because the skin no longer needs to camouflage anything. The cellular reality already produces a radiant result. The source of this natural glow is not a product applied externally, but rather an internal structural power. Ultimately, nutritional adjustments that accelerate cell renewal are a powerful tool for youthfulness, with both immediate and long-term effects. While it may not be possible to completely erase the traces of time, increasing the speed at which cells work is one of the most effective methods of slowing down aging. Even when a person changes just one nutritional behavior, a new harmony begins between the skin, body, and mind. This harmony is often the real reason behind that natural youthful glow that outsiders observe and remark, "She's done something, but I can't figure out what." 7. Make minimal product changes to even out skin tone. Friends, let me tell you something. Evening out skin tone can start with a smaller change than most women think, because skin discoloration is usually the result of micro-level imperfections rather than major flaws. The wrong product choice, overly thick textures, heavy formulas, or unnecessary ingredients weigh down the skin and dull the pore's natural ability to produce radiance. Therefore, even a single minimal product change can improve the skin's ability to breathe. When switching to a lighter formula, the face appears brighter, more even, and younger, as if a veil has been lifted. A small change opens the door to a big transformation. Of course, the power of this minimal change is related to the skin's optical behavior, because the skin only reflects light evenly when it is in the right texture. Heavy products disrupt the refraction of light. They deepen shadows and make the face look more tired than it is. However, when a lightweight, skin-compatible product that doesn't strain the barrier is used, the way light glides over the face becomes more balanced. An outside observer might think this is a healthy glow. In reality, it's the optical harmony created by a minimal change. Simply because the texture is lighter, the skin gains a more natural, brighter, and more holistic appearance. Additionally, this small product change also reduces microinflammation in the skin. This is because heavy products accumulate on the skin throughout the day, and when combined with heat, moisture, and sebum, cause irritation. This increases redness, uneven skin tone, and especially dark circles around the cheeks and nose. When switching to minimal formulas, this microinflammation gradually subsides. The complexion appears calmer, more balanced, and more serene. That's why many women say they started looking younger simply by switching to a lighter product. The secret to a youthful appearance is sometimes not about adding something, but removing the excess. As most of us would guess, the sustainability of this minimal change produces much stronger results in the long run. When the skin comes into contact with light formulas every day, the barrier is less stressed, pores become less clogged, and color unevenness gradually diminishes. After a while, the skin learns to regulate its own tone because there is no longer the daily pressure that disrupts it. The radiance that appears on the woman's face is not the effect of the product used, but of the absence of the product's weight. In other words, youth sometimes comes not from adding the right thing, but from leaving out the wrong thing. Ultimately, a minimal change in products that evens out skin tone is a quiet, powerful, and sustainable youth strategy. Unlike temporary fixes provided by excessive products, this approach respects the skin's own rhythm. It does not burden it, but rather creates a space for it to breathe. Within this space, the skin establishes its own balance, calms its tone, and brings back the natural glow it has been seeking for years. Let's not forget that if a person incorporates even this change into their life, the look 10 years younger effect often begins much faster than they imagine. 8. Having an easy habit that stimulates collagen production. Now, I want to say here that stimulating collagen production is not as complicated as most people think. On the contrary, even a single easy habit that can be practiced every day significantly slows down the skin's aging process. This is because collagen is the fundamental building block that forms the skin's skeleton. When it weakens, the skin sags, wrinkles become more pronounced, and the face generally takes on a more tired appearance. Therefore, a small daily behavior that increases collagen synthesis builds an invisible power line that supports the skin from below. It only takes weeks to feel this power, because cells naturally begin to work more efficiently when they receive regular stimulation. As you can see, the biological basis for this simple habit is quite clear. When the skin is exposed to certain types of mechanical stimuli, temperature changes, or the right nutrients, it triggers a repair alarm. This alarm increases the activation of collagen-producing cells called fibroblasts. For example, even a light massage, a warm-to-cold transition, or a micro-application that supports collagen synthesis sends a produce more signal to the skin's lower layers. This signal creates a domino effect throughout the day because the stimulated fibroblasts increase the production of not only collagen, but also youth molecules like elastin and hyaluronic acid. So a small habit triggers 3 major effects at once. I also want to mention that another reason this method is so powerful is that collagen directly affects the skin's surface optically. When collagen increases, the skin doesn't just become firmer, it refracts light more evenly, shadows soften, and the face begins to look more fresh. This is a natural photofilter effect and is entirely the work of biology. That's why when a woman maintains a habit that stimulates collagen support for a few weeks, those around her start saying things like, "You don't look tired," or "Your skin looks more vibrant." In reality, this difference is the silent result of a foundation being rebuilt at the cellular level. Looking at it from another angle, this simple habit that stimulates collagen production also changes a person's mental state. Because this small act of self-care sends the subconscious the message, "I am renewing myself." This message affects not only mood, but also hormonal balance. Of course, normally when cortisol decreases, inflammation decreases. When inflammation decreases, collagen breakdown slows down. So by simply adopting a habit, the person both increases production and reduces breakdown. This dual effect is one of the most efficient biochemical cycles that accelerate youthfulness. Now let me also point out that the biggest advantage of this habit is that it is sustainable. Because a simple movement that is naturally incorporated into your daily routine can be maintained for many years. When a person makes this a regular habit, their facial features gradually appear more defined, their cheeks become fuller, their jawline becomes more pronounced, and their skin generally gains a smoother texture. Because this effect can be achieved without expensive procedures, It becomes a fundamental turning point in many women's journey toward youthfulness. 9. Practicing breathing techniques to release facial tension. We have come to one of the most important and valuable points. One of the most effective ways to release facial tension is a controlled breathing technique, which often goes unnoticed but has a profound effect, because breathing is the most direct relaxation command that reaches the muscles. Throughout the day, people unconsciously tense their faces, frown, clench their jaws, and these micro-tensions gradually make facial lines permanent. However, conscious breathing sends a silent signal to these muscle groups to relax. When this signal becomes a regular habit, the face softens and the underlying tension is released, revealing a more youthful appearance. In other words, breathing is the simplest yet most powerful gateway to aesthetic transformation. In fact, there is also this reality. The scientific basis for this technique is quite clear. When you take a deep breath, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and the body enters no-threat mode. When the perception of threat disappears, the facial muscles relax involuntarily, the jawline softens, the eye area opens up, and the forehead appears smoother. This change occurs within a few seconds. Therefore, a person can immediately reduce some of the signs of aging on their face simply by breathing correctly. This is a biological command that is invisible from the outside but affects the shape of the face, and its effect is profound. Additionally, the breathing technique that relieves facial tension also increases circulation, giving the skin an instantly fresher color. The oxygen taken in with deep breathing dilates the microvessels in the facial area. The dilated vessels carry more blood, and the increased blood flow gives the skin a natural glow. That's why many women see a more vibrant face when they look in the mirror after breathing exercises. However, this liveliness comes not from makeup, but from the relaxation of facial muscles and the skin filling with oxygen. In short, breathing is an invisible lamp that illuminates the face from within. The most explosive part of this phenomenon is that it also transforms emotional energy. This is because facial muscles carry not only physical but also emotional burdens. Anger, stress, sadness, anxiety all accumulate in certain areas of the face and eventually turn into habitual expressions. When deep breathing techniques are applied, the person not only relaxes their muscles but also dissolves these emotional residues. This dissolution makes the facial expressions softer, more peaceful, and more youthful. When people sometimes say that the light has changed, it is precisely the external reflection of this internal relaxation. In addition, the sustainability of this breathing habit makes it very valuable, because it can be done anywhere: in bed, in front of the mirror, in the car, at the computer. Even repeating it just a few times resets the facial muscles daily. This reset prevents lines from deepening, stops muscles from stiffening, and gives the skin natural elasticity. When practiced regularly, facial features become clearer, fresher, and take on a more youthful energy. This technique is also one of the most sustainable anti-aging strategies in the long term because it requires no products. 10. A simple yet highly effective movement that firms the eye area. First, I want to point out that the eye area is one of the thinnest, most sensitive, and fastest aging parts of the face. Therefore, even a small movement here can create a surprisingly powerful transformation. This is because the muscles around the eyes tire unnoticed throughout the day due to facial expressions, creating micro-tensions and weakening the underlying structure that supports the skin. However, a simple movement performed at the right angle allows these muscles to both relax and regain strength. The eye area is revitalized. The face appears more awake, younger, and brighter. The power of this movement comes not from its complexity, but rather from its simplicity, which is in harmony with the rhythm of biology. Essentially, to understand this simple movement, one must consider the anatomy of the eye area, because there is a unified muscle ring in this area, and when this ring is stimulated correctly, the tension in the skin is released. Circulation increases, and the tissues become more vibrant. A light lift, a light press, or a directional massage gives the muscles under the skin a reorganize command. Of course, although this command is small, its effect is great, because when the muscles tighten, the appearance of wrinkles on the skin surface softens, fine lines become less noticeable, and the shadow of fatigue around the eyes lightens. It is no coincidence that many women achieve a more youthful look simply by performing this movement regularly. There is also another fact. Another reason this technique is biologically effective is that it accelerates blood flow around the eyes. Increased circulation in an area where the skin is so thin allows oxygen and nutrients to reach the cells more quickly. This puts the skin into repair mode. It reduces puffiness, lightens dark circles, and evens out skin tone. As a result, the complex shadows around the eyes soften, light reflects more evenly on the surface, and the person looks more rested. Therefore, the effect of this small movement is felt not only in the muscles, but also in the entire optical perception. Keep in mind that this movement also has an emotional dimension. The eye area is the part of the face that most reveals a person's state of mind. Stress, anxiety, insomnia, emotional burdens, they all accumulate here. A simple lifting movement not only relaxes the muscles, but also relieves the burden carried by the mind. While performing this movement, the person unconsciously regulates their breathing, reduces internal tension, and lightens the emotional shadows on their face. This is why the eyes appearing more open and clearer is not only a physical result, but also a sign of mental refreshment. As a result, this simple yet effective movement that tightens the eye area is a youth strategy that delivers quick results and deepens over time. An eye area that reflects light better makes the entire face appear younger because the gaze becomes the center of all expression. This small movement erases the weight of the day from the eyes, lifts the energy of the face, and gives the person back that fresh, clear expression they thought they had lost years ago. In all 10 points I shared with you in this video, we clearly saw that small but correct steps, when applied regularly, quietly accumulate and act as the building blocks of a major transformation. From this very simple touch that strengthens the skin barrier to a particularly small change in rhythm in the first minutes of the morning, or even a micro movement that awakens our facial muscles, all these practices, when viewed individually, may seem small, but when combined, they are very powerful links in a chain that significantly shapes both the person's face and their real-life energy. Because, as you know, youthfulness is not an image added from the outside, but essentially a state of wholeness that we elevate from within ourselves. And this journey, especially when the person looks in the mirror, brings not only brighter skin, but also a much more balanced mind, and consequently a more confident posture, along with that deep inner voice saying, "I am truly changing now." Friends, if you found this video useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support truly helps this channel grow and allows me to bring you even more meaningful content. Take care of yourselves, stay committed to your own well-being, and let every new day be an opportunity to become the strongest version of who you are. Remember, women are the ones with the power to change the world. Your resilience, your intuition, and your courage shape not only your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. Bravely forge your own path, honor the woman you are becoming, and enjoy every moment of this journey. because the world shines a little brighter every time you choose yourself.